Sounds good.
Welcome to the show. Chris Graham here with Jerry Ratcliffe. It's the Jerry Ratcliffe Show, and it's a big weekend for Jerry, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's start with the latest in Virginia basketball. I mean, we're now more than a month past the end of the season and continuing to break news in basketball with especially the transfer portal recruiting. And so, Jerry, another big pickup this week for Tony Bennett and his staff, with a guard from up Tony's way, up from Wisconsin, that looks like he can put the ball in the hole pretty well.
Yeah, I watched as much video as I could find on the kid, Andrew Rohde. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his last name, Rohde. 6'4", 160 pound, 6'6". He actually grew 2 inches his first year in college, I guess. 6'6", 160 pound shooting guard. Originally from St. Paul, Milwaukee, in high school, and then played for St. Thomas Tommies in St. Paul, Minnesota. And Chris, he lit it up. I mean, he was the nation's third highest scoring freshman. I know he had at least 12 games with 20 or more points, including the last 5 in a row that he played in the season. And he averaged, I think, 17 and a half points, 3.7 assists, and 3.5 rebounds per game for the Tommies. And he had some games where he lit it up. He had 23 and 25 against a decent Oral Roberts team, and 27 against North Dakota. And I'm trying to I think he shot, trying to find his 3-point average, but I don't see it. It's in here somewhere, but pretty good.
44. He was 44.8% from the field and 32% from three, but high volume. Yeah. He had to do a lot for that team.
He really did. He was as a freshman, he was his team's leading overall scorer, which is a lot to put on a freshman. So he's used to being under pressure and used to delivering and used to leading, which is pretty good for a guy in his first year in college.
And when I looked at it, Jerry, after picking him up, and of course the Jordan Minor pickup from Mary Mack, I guess that was a week or two ago, Tony Bennett's needs going into the offseason, the two biggest needs, the two most glaring, he was losing his two leading scorers. Armaan Franklin, at 12.4 points per game, 6'4" shooting guard, declaring for the NBA draft. Jaden Gardner, 12.0 points a game. His eligibility running out after playing 5 years, 3 years at 3 years at ECU and 2 years at Virginia. And so Tony has addressed those needs. He picking up a shooting guard to replace Franklin, picking up a power forward to replace Gardner. And of course, Dante Harris, the Georgetown transfer that came in mid-season and redshirted, but he replaced, will stand in and replace Kihei Clark. So, 3 big areas taken care of there off the transfer portal, and maybe just one more thing. If he can figure out a way to lure a center, that might make things whole on the whole for Virginia basketball. And fans a few weeks ago were up in arms over all the losses and to the transfer portal, to the NBA draft, that kind of thing. And boy, I think the roster is looking pretty solid now.
It really is, particularly if Beekman decides to come back.
Right.
Right now, should he come back, they have 10 guys on the roster.
Yeah.
And you can't play any more than that. And they're not done yet. I know I understand they're going to be bringing in another recruit this weekend. Haven't found out who he is yet. I hope to find that out sometime in the next few hours, or at least by tomorrow. And there is another guy from Northwestern that they have made contact with, a 6'9" forward, guy named Robbie Baran. He's a senior. I don't know if he has 1 or 2 years of eligibility left, but he averaged 7.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and shot about 37% for the Wildcats last year. So they're still active in the portal. I think they'd like to have 11 or 12 guys that, depending on, again, whether Beekman comes back or not. And I mean, that's all you need, Chris, right? I mean, especially if, I don't know if they're going to get that big man that everybody was hoping for. Just don't know. But if they don't, it looks like they got enough to make do. And they got, I thought it was crucial that they either landed Rhodey or Blue Kane. And I haven't looked to see if Kane is committed anywhere or not, but he obviously came by for a visit, and I felt like it was crucial that they signed at least one of those two guys, because this team needs some shooting, and both of those guys are pure shooters. And from what I understand, talking to a couple of people that met Rhodey and was around him a little bit last weekend, they said if you could cut out a guy who fits the Virginia mold, he was 100% in that mold. And he's definitely a Tony Bennett kind of guy, definitely a UVA basketball kind of guy. And so it sounds like that he was a guy that they went after hard. And from what I also heard, they were a little concerned that they might lose him to Creighton, because Creighton apparently was throwing around some big NIL numbers, which obviously Virginia couldn't match, or wouldn't match. And so anytime you can win a recruiting battle like that, you got to feel pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, it's the NIL. It's not supposed to be thrown around until the kid's there, but it is being thrown around, definitely. And to get a 6'6" shooter too. I mean, so he's a big guy. He's going to be able to see over defenses out there on the 3-point line. You got him. You got McNeely at 6'4". He'll be coming in as a sophomore after building on a good freshman season at Virginia. That's a good combination. Rhodey he'll be a sophomore next year. He's got 3 years of eligibility left as well. So those two guys hopefully can grow up together there in the backcourt. Dante Harris, I think, would have 3 years of eligibility left. I think he had a COVID redshirt year in addition to the 2 years he would have had left after his 2 years at Georgetown. So, that's a chance. I mean, if you can keep those guys together, keep that core together, they can grow up together. And, certainly this coming season, do some things for Virginia basketball, but maybe, when they get older, junior and senior years could be really interesting for Virginia basketball. And, Jordan Minor is a guy who's a 4-year guy, so he's only got 1 year left. But, if you're going to get a short-term rental, you're getting a guy who also scores 17 points a game plus and rebounds 9 a game. And he for a 6'8" guy, he blocked 2.5 shots a game last year at Marion Mac. And he relentlessly attacks the rim. 80% of his shots, or more than 80% of his shots, are at the rim. So he's a real beast down low. So, yeah, it's early, and we got months to go until the first formal practice in October. But yeah, I'm liking the way this roster's shaping up. I think that Tony looked at the deficiencies maybe from last season's team, which all it did was tie for the ACC regular season title, and said, let's figure out some ways we can get better. And last year's team was lacking in post play. Now the Minor will address that. He's got Tony now has another shooter to add to the mix, and assuming Beekman comes back, he's got 2 great point guards to play. This is a pretty good looking roster.
And we're still going to see a better version, I think, of Ryan Dunn. I think he's only going to get better and better, and maybe faster than some people expected. I think he's going to be really good. And McNeely, my goodness, if his work ethic, he's only going to get to be more of a lethal weapon out there on the perimeter. I think things are shaping up pretty well. I know Virginia fans, like you mentioned, were panicking for a while there because they were losing guys, and striking out on some of the people they were going after in the portal. But there's so many guys out there to choose from. If you're careful, you're going to find guys that fit your system and blend in chemistry wise with what you're trying to do.
I noticed that one guy that had been reported to be a target, Will Shaver, the North Carolina transfer. I saw this afternoon. He ended up at Belmont, which makes me think that if he ended up at Belmont, he probably had fallen off the radar for Virginia. He would have, I would assume, would have taken a Virginia offer had one been there. So that's a big guy that Virginia had been looking at, but I'm guessing just passed on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a guy that maybe Carolina missed on. Apparently they missed on a couple of guys, but it doesn't sound like they overly impressed Hubert Davis and his staff. It's probably the reason he transferred in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've never heard anything really inspiring about why Virginia would go after him. So yeah, I think you're right. I think he kind of fell off a lot of people's radar. Just because you're a 6'10" guy was pretty good in high school doesn't mean it's going to translate into success at the next level. And we see that all the time, especially with big guys.
So there's an assistant coaching position open with the departure of Kyle Getter, which we both wrote about last week. You had it first, and I backed you up. And days later, everybody else jumped on the bandwagon there. He's heading to Notre Dame. We talked about it on the podcast last week. Tony has an opening there to fill, and I mean, I guess there's two schools of thought. He could either go on the outside and try to bring somebody in with experience from other coaching trees, or promote from within. I guess I'm hearing that it's at least being speculated by some around the program that he's going to probably promote from within, and the name I'm hearing is Isaiah Wilkins. I'm wondering, Jerry, if you're hearing anything one way or the other about that opening.
I've heard the very same thing, Chris. I know that they've interviewed at least one other candidate, maybe two or three from outside the program. I have heard a name or two, but I'm not going to throw that out there right now. But yeah, I've heard the same thing, and that's something that Tony likes to do. He likes to promote from within. That's how Getter got moved into that spot 2 years ago, taking Brad Soderberg's place, and they kind of swapped positions on the staff. And I guess Vandross would move up into the principal lead assistant behind Jason Williford, and that Isaiah Wilkins would kind of move into his spot on the staff as a full-time assistant instead of a grad assistant, and then get somebody to move into the grad assistant spot. They might have somebody already there or somebody in mind to be there. But that's the same thing I'm hearing, and that would be great for Isaiah. They'll be able to start his career on a Power 5 staff, especially his alma mater, only a few years out of school. So, and I'm sure he'd be a welcome addition in the eyes of Virginia fans as well. But, he knows Tony Bennett's program as well as anybody, and having played in it and a grad assistant last year. So he would fit right into the scheme of things.
What I like about having a guy like Wilkins, it's kind of like with Williford. Williford, back when he played at Virginia in the 90s, 91 to 95, he was on some really talented teams: Corey Alexander, Junior Burrow, Harold Dean, Jamal Robinson teams. Williford was a pretty well-regarded recruit himself, but he ended up being the guy on that team who did all the dirty work. He defended well on the post. He dove on the floor for loose balls. He rebounded. He set screens. He just did all the little stuff. You need a guy like that on your team. Wilkins was the same way when he was on the teams in the mid 2010s. Not everybody can go up and score 20 points a game and make the flashy plays. You need some guys who can just go out there and do the dirty work. And those guys, I think they end up being the better when their basketball playing career is over. They end up being the better coaches because they understand the game a little differently than those star players do. So I think that's why that's why those kind of guys are valuable to your program. Not everything came easy to them, and they worked harder for it. They understand the game a little better, and they can coach guys to play that way. If you can coach guys to play the way they did, you could win some games.
Yeah, I remember for those of us who covered those teams that Jason was on, we always referred to him as the glue guy because you're right. He did all the dirty work. He did things that doesn't necessarily always show up big in the box score, and was a team guy, and he kept people together and he kept things positive and made a huge impact on the program. And you're right. I think those kind of guys do appreciate the opportunities a lot more maybe than some of the guys who things come a lot easier to them, particularly scoring. And they do make good coaches. There's a lot of really successful coaches out there who were never stars of their team. They were just basic role players or guys that understood the game and studied the game and really get it. And Jason was one. I think Isaiah is one of those guys. And I mean, he did so many little things that helped his teams win at Virginia. And I think that's why people loved him so much.
So Virginia's still looking. Perhaps there's some more players visiting, and Jerry will find out who they are because Jerry just knows all this stuff. He'll find this out before they come, and we'll see if there's anybody else. And certainly, maybe a need for one more big, maybe a need there to address going forward. But yeah, this is a pretty good looking roster. Hey, I thought I'd throw one thing out, Jerry. We're not going to talk much football because, but spring practice has ended, and already after spring practice, Cameron Kelly, the guy who transferred in from North Carolina just in January, is already headed back out. He's in the transfer portal. So he didn't stay around very long. He was in spring practice, defensive back. They were getting some looks at safety and cornerback, which Tony Elliott has identified as a major need himself, looking at this new transfer portal period now post spring practice. But Virginia now not only has to go out and look for some more corners, they have to replace one they had in camp. So Cameron Kelly is heading out, and I've been scouring the transfer portal football, that is, and I've not seen any other names added today anyway. So Tony had talked about after the spring game on Saturday that there could be some interest from guys who were in the program to perhaps want to test the waters, and we've seen one at least.
Yeah, and I interviewed that guy after one of the practice sessions, and that's 15 minutes of my life I'll never get back. What a waste of time that was. I don't understand some of these kids today, but he seemed a little full of baloney to me anyway. But I guess the portal is opening up again, and it's about to see a lot more activity. I saw where 2 Florida State offensive linemen jumped into the portal today, and not to mention a bunch of other people, but those 2 particularly caught my eye because we know who somebody could use some offensive linemen. Defensive backs. But yeah, I imagine Virginia, their coaches hit the road again. I guess. Was it Monday or Tuesday for this recruiting? The recruiting window's open again, and the portal, I guess, is heating up again now that most people's spring games are over with. And so I expect a little bit more flurry of activity, Chris. It's going to keep us watching all these portal reports in 2 sports for the next few weeks.
We thought we had it hard when there was 1 portal open. Now we got 2 of them open. Yeah. That's all I think I'm doing all day long is in between writing stories. I'm refreshing those portals and seeing And I'm looking for the Virginia guys. I'm looking for, but I'm looking to see who also is out there, because like you said, with football, there's a need certainly at cornerback, and also big time needed offensive line. Maybe one more quarterback, and you know, it's easier in basketball, I think, because most of those names, you kind of know, especially with the ACC guys who are throwing their names out there. Boy, there's so much in football, so many moving parts to a football program that I look at the name, I look at the school they're at, and then I say, well, that's another guy I don't know. So I can't imagine what it's like for the coaches to have to deal with all this.
I can't either. And I know that Tony Elliott has a support staff of guys, and that's they're dedicated to doing that. That's all they do, I guess, is check out excuse me, check out recruits and transfer portal guys and pass them on to the coaches and to see if they might be interested in pursuing them or not. But I don't know. Excuse me, outside and the pollen's getting to me. I just can't imagine how hard it is to keep up with the hundreds of guys that are in these portals, and it's daily. I mean, there's people jumping in all day, all night.
Yeah.
Almost every day. It's unbelievable.
All day, all night. Yeah. Every time I click on it, there's at least a few new, both, I should say, not just it. When we click on both of them, there's a few new names. So yeah, that's so. I mean, it's a living. We do this, and we have to comb it ourselves, and it definitely gets people's interest going. That's for sure. So let's talk, Jerry, about, there's a big weekend coming up for down in Virginia Beach, the induction for the 2023 class of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Some familiar names to UVA fans: Sean Moore, Ryan Zimmerman, among the people to be inducted. Also, Virginia Tech's D'Angelo Hall. I know Jimmy Laycock, the longtime William and Mary football coach who had great success down there in Williamsburg. There's a few other names out there as well. And then there's one sports writer, a guy named Jerry Ratcliffe. Jerry, congratulations. Well, I'll be down there with you. My wife, Crystal, is joining me. I think Scott German's going to be driving there as well. We're going to all be cheering. We're going to be the part of the cheering section for you. Tell me, I don't know. Tell me when you first heard the news. I guess it was late last year. When you first heard the news, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, it was in November, and I had gotten a call from Will Driscoll, the new executive director of the Sports Hall of Fame, down in that area, and I was just very humbled. Didn't you know me? I don't mind talking a lot, and I was somewhat speechless. It was it's something that you hope might happen sometime in your career, but it's never a given. Something I never really thought about when I got into the business over 40 years ago. And when I was started as a one-man sports staff. Looks like I'm ending as one-man sports staff. But at that point, you're just trying to make a name for yourself and learn to do things right, and try to be accurate and try to be fair and balanced and honest with your readers and with the people you cover. And that's one thing I've taken a lot of pride in is I think if you'll ask just about any coach that I've ever covered their program, they'll always say that I was fair, that I praised them when they deserved it, and I criticized them when they deserved it. And I've tried to be very careful about that. And but it was a very humbling experience to get that call from Will. It was I have to admit, I gave a big fist pump into the air when I got off the phone, because it was it's something you just don't know if it'll ever happen, and it kind of just signifies that all these years it was worth it. wasn't really about the awards. Most of the awards I won were nice, but it's just something you hang on the wall or put in a box. And the real awards are people coming up to you these days and say, I've been reading you since I was 8 years old, or when I was in college at UVA, or reading your column this past week reminded me of going to games with my dad, who just passed, when I was 12 years old, and stuff like that, which really is touches your heart and makes you feel like that it was all worth it, and you've had an impact and done things the right way.
What I think is particularly neat about this award for you is that, like you mentioned, all all the awards you've won, they're all from media organizations, and I've won awards from media organizations too. This isn't from a media, or this is from the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. This is not just this isn't just among other writers. This is like, hey, this is, Ryan Zimmerman's going to be there this weekend. Which, like I said, Sean Moore, D'Angelo Hall, Jimmy Laycock. I mean, some really big names in Virginia sports people you've covered as well. So it makes you appear. I mean, and you are, but it's an award putting you in that realm with those guys and gals too. There's women in the Hall of Fame and some women in the class this year as well. So I don't know. To me, that kind of stands out even more than just an award from other writers. This is the Sports Hall of Fame. I love that for you.
Yeah, and that means more because it's like you said, it's not just media. So we slap each other on the back probably too much anyway.
Yeah.
But I think it means more coming from people that are not really your immediate peers, but people who have observed your work from afar over time and know what you're all about. I was nominated by Thomas Jones. We've had him on our show. It's one of the top 25 running backs in NFL history, all American here at Virginia, now a successful actor. Got some great letters vouching for me from Dick Vitale, and who I've known since the early 80s, and Dr. Bob Rotella, and all three of those guys and some others, Tiki Barber, saying some incredibly kind things about me. So if those kind of people are paying attention to your work, you feel like that you got it right somewhere along the way. And that probably is as gratifying as anything, to know that you're held in some esteem by people who matter in various college and pro sports from all over the country, and because they've dealt with some of the most successful people in sports, and I wouldn't think they suffer any fools, and so it makes you feel like you've done it right, and they acknowledge that, and it's an incredible honor to be in the 50th class with guys like Ryan Zimmerman, who we saw what he did for Virginia baseball, helping them build a national powerhouse, and then being the face of the Washington Nationals for what, 2 decades.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
He
Mr.
was Mr. Nat. He was the original Nat, basically.
He
Yeah.
was the guy, man. I tell you, I'm not sure this will be the only Hall of Fame that he'll be limited to. And then Sean Moore, for God's sake, arguably the greatest quarterback in UVA history. Other people might have numbers, but nobody took Virginia football where Sean Moore took them to.
3 weeks at number 1.
Yep.
I was a freshman. I was a first year at UVA in 1990 when we were number 1 in the country for 3 weeks. That's all because of Sean Moore.
George Wells said Sean Moore was the perfect guy at the perfect time for Virginia football. And if for those people who enjoyed watching and were somewhat of aficionados about the sport, and watching that offense that George and Gary Tranquil put together back then was one of the most dangerous offenses I've ever seen in college football. because they could do so many different things that there were people that just were baffled. They couldn't defend them. They had no idea how to stop those guys. And so to go in with those two guys who I've had the utmost respect for so long, and Jimmy Laycock, we all saw his brilliance, particularly in the offensive passing game over 40 years at William and Mary. I mean, his work was outstanding. The other people, I don't know them, but I know of them, and honored to go in alongside them too. But very special, and I feel very privileged, and it'll be a weekend that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, for sure.
So my wife asked me to ask, as far as how things go this weekend, when you're honored, do you get to give a speech? And if so, what do you have in mind?
I do. I've been kind of writing it in my head when I can't sleep at night. I'll have to put it down on paper tonight sometime. I think we're supposed to sum up our entire career in 8 minutes.
Okay.
Won't be easy. So there'll have to be a blanket coverage of thanking so many people that have helped me along the way, and all the coaches, all the athletes, all the journalists and editors who've helped guide me along in the business. And
In 8 minutes, that's not gonna be easy.
not only like you and Crystal, who helped me restart my journalistic life when my former newspaper life came to an end, but guys like Jeff Motley, who used to be sports editor of the Lynchburg paper. We used to travel together everywhere. He's now vice president of Las Vegas Speedway. He's flying in for the occasion, and like you said, Scott German and some other close friends from here in town who've always supported me, and it'll just be a pretty cool moment. Some family will be there. But yeah, I gotta after stringing all these ideas together in my head, I gotta put it on paper and then read it and make sure I can get it done in 8 minutes.
I had a speech
I hope they don't give me the hook.
or ring the gong like from the Gong Show, like in the 70s. I had to give a speech last year, and I wrote that speech in my head when I would lay down to go to bed at least 20 times. I should have just written it out the first night, but I didn't. So you might have been doing the same thing. And this is a lot. So you get it down tonight. Don't think about it anymore. Enjoy the weekend. Are you heading down tomorrow to get there early to kind of meet and greet?
Yeah, they have a reception at a place, I think a block or two from the hotel in Virginia Beach. I think it's from 4 to 7 or something like that. And so I'll go down. We'll go down for that, and then there's a breakfast Saturday morning. Q&A, I think, and autographs. With all those other people there, I don't think my autograph's going to be in very high demand, but I'll be there in case anybody wants one. Or if they have one of mine and your books, be happy to sign them.
That's right.
But, and then the reception for the ceremony starts around 5 or something like that. And the ceremony goes from 7 to 9. And then that's when the real fun begins, because that's when you can go and talk to Jimmy Laycock and Ryan Zimmerman and Sean Moore and people there to see. Somebody told me Mike Tomlin was coming to support Jimmy Laycock, his coach at William and Mary. So there'll probably be all kinds of people there, Chris, that you'd like to talk to, and that Scott German can harass, because he's never met a stranger in his life.
I know. I'll be the one like sitting in the back of the room, and Scott will come up and keep telling me, "Hey, I just talked with Mike Tomlin, and I just talked with whoever," and he'll drag us into it, I'm sure. But yeah, just being a fly on the wall for me on Saturday, like you said, with all those folks there, and it's gonna be, it'd be nice just to be among those greats. And I'm sure what we might even have, I would be surprised if we didn't have some past Hall of Famers there as well to welcome the new class in. So yeah, what a great weekend.
I think it's not unusual to see some of the past Hall of Famers there, and man, there's some really big names of people that are in that Hall of Fame. So yeah, maybe some of them will show up, and for our viewers and listeners out there as well, I just found out the other day that the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, one of their big fundraisers is that they have a Virginia Sports Hall of Fame golf tournament every June that used to be held in Williamsburg, but the last few years they've held it in Stanton, but they are moving it this year to Stony Creek, right here in yours and mine backyard. And you can sign up to play in it. It's usually a captain's choice, and they have food and drinks and stuff. And they have a bunch of Hall of Famers that come and play in that. And I think each foursome gets to play with a Hall of Famer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I know back years ago when the former company I worked for, they used to sponsor the tournament in Williamsburg, and I used to take some advertisers down there. And I know that we played 1 year with Ken Willard, who was a great running back from Carolina and the San Francisco 49ers. And I'll never forget Frank Quell being in awe of Ken Willard. It was his hero when he was growing up. And played with Ralph 1 year. I played with that was an experience, just to see a guy that 7'4" swing a golf club. Played with Lefty Drizel 1 year, which is probably one of the most fun hours of my life, just listening to Lefty, and some other guys. So we'll have some information about that on my website soon, and I encourage people out in our audience to support it, because it's a fun day. I'm telling you.
Captain's choice is the only way I can play, because otherwise I'm playing in the hazards and the out of bounds and the cart paths and all that stuff. So at least I get to hit my shot. If I lose the ball, whatever, I get to hit the next shot from the center of the fairway, because that's the only way I ever get to play from the center of the fairway.
That's what it's all about.
Well, Jerry, thanks a lot. I look forward to being just there this weekend with you, rooting you on, and good luck with the Hall of Fame ceremonies. I know as we're wrapping up here, we like to thank our sponsors. I'll let you make that pitch there.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without them, and we really appreciate their support as always. Aberdeen Barn, Virginia's finest steakhouse. Great atmosphere, great food, great service, convenient location. You don't know who you'll bump into in that place. Bump into all the Virginia greats from the past. Go there, and
probably a Hall of Famer or two,
probably a few more than likely. The Good Feet store with Jonathan Cotton, they do so much good work through the NIL and supporting Virginia. A really rapidly fast growing company. They've got stores all over Virginia, North Carolina, DC, Maryland, and just moved into Cleveland, I think. They can help you have a much more comfortable spring in your step if you're having any difficulty walking. Even if you're not, they sell arches that support your feet in 3 places and make it just much more comfortable walking or running. And Roebuck, again, another fast growing company based in Charlottesville, activewear, sportswear with a whole new spring line of colorful and great looking apparel for men and women. They have a women's line as well. Something you need to check out. Look at their ad on my website and click on, and if you're ordering, hit the button and code Jerry, Jerry, get 20% off. Can't ask for a better deal than that. So thank all those sponsors for helping us come to you each week, at least once. And we appreciate you guys listening. We're picking up tons more listeners every week, Chris. I've looked at the numbers, and blows me away how many people are taking time to listen to our thoughts, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm humbled by that, no doubt about it. I've had these thoughts for years, and I didn't know anybody cared. That's really nice. Well, thanks to Jerry, thanks to the sponsors, thanks to the viewers and listeners, and go to jerryratcliffe.com, go to augustafreepress.com for the latest on Virginia sports, and we will talk to you again soon.